why we had to. I don't think anybody else was, but if you would just explain that, please.
Yes, certainly, Chairman. As I explained to members, the contract with FCC is worth a multi-million-pound contract. It's one of the largest and most complex contracts that the council has ever let, and as such, the council is bound into a contract that has a certain process, or has processes and remedies that are available to it, and the council must follow those remedies and processes if it isn't going to be on the receiving end of a claim. And therefore the council has received legal advice as to the merits otherwise of passing the amendment that has been made. It is now a matter for council to decide whether it agrees the amendment or not.
Thank you. Right, we're now going to move into debate on the amendment. Who wishes to start? Councillor Alston.
Thank you, Chair. I rather sympathise with Councillor Rowe earlier on, who said that we have previously debated this whole subject to death on a number of occasions, and we intend to be doing it again by the looks of it. The one thing that has come to light over the time that we've been debating it is that this is becoming a national problem for HGV drivers that are affecting councils right the way across the country. And when you're in a situation where Tesco's and Marks and Spencer's are offering people more than £50,000 a year and a £5,000 welcome bonus when they start for being an HGV driver, it's not going to be a problem that we can fix quickly. And I think for those members that consistently seem to think that we can bring it back in-house and resolve the problem straight away, as time goes on, I suspect it will become more and more apparent. And we are now looking at situations where we may be having petrol shortages and diesel shortages because they can't get HGV drivers to deliver that either. That actually, if we change the circumstances, as is proposed in this recommendation, simply bringing it in-house will not necessarily change a thing, and we will purely be in a situation where we will then be responsible for managing a situation that is a national crisis.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got to say I pretty much completely concur with everything that Councillor Austin has just said. There's no way. I appreciate the enormous frustration. There is not a councillor in this authority that is not enormously frustrated by the position that we are in at the moment and does not have an inbox which is bulging at least twice a week from all the complaints we're seeing from residents. But I'm afraid there is no way I can support this amendment. Be complete folly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baston.
Thank you, Chairman. Some of you will know that for a while I lived in Paignton, and in Paignton and Torbay, they've had a similar service to ours for 10 years, but on the 26th of August, Steve Starling, leader of Torbay, managers are pitching in to drive Torbay bin lorries. September the 16th, Torbay Weekly. We're doing all we can to help recycling services. We are not alone in this predicament. All around the country, people and companies and councils are struggling with clearing their rubbish. And I can go on. There is more representation from Torbay Council apologising that they are unable to collect their bins. So we're not alone. And I say to you that we're doing better than some in trying to get this back on course. And your executive and your officers are working extremely hard to improve the situation. It is not satisfactory, I agree. And yesterday, residents in my ward did not have their bins collected, but I'm hopeful that that they will be collected today. Thank you, Chairman.
Don't know whether they were trying to tell you something, Councillor Baston.
I blame the Lib Dems for everything.
Councillor Kemp, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Sweet. Well, think about it, and I'll go to Councillor Sweet in the background.
Thank you. I mean, we're not asking questions now, are we? We're debating.
We're debating this, yes.
We're debating. So I just wanted to make the point, really, that it isn't just, we're not at this stage with FCC purely because of the lack of drivers, although I appreciate the comments that have just been made. We were experiencing problems with FCC before Brexit and before COVID. We've experienced problems with the changeover, and, since I've been a councillor, we've been experiencing problems with FCC. So I think that's the point about bringing it back into house, is it's not solely because, well, I've attended lots of meetings where there's been debate and problems, and yeah, absolutely, there was problems with the changeover way before we had the driver shortage. Well, we can go back through minutes, and all the sessions are recorded, so we'll see that there have been lots of discussions about FCC issues. And actually, I'll make the point that it was me that raised that there was a national shortage of drivers at the last meeting we had here. And I mentioned it was because of Brexit, and I seem to remember I got booed, and it wasn't even on the cards at that time. So there have clearly been problems with FCC way predating the national driver shortage. So that's why I do support the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Sweet, I think one thing you are incorrect on. The first year that they ran the collection on the old system, they did a better job than the in-house did. That's statistically proven. I've seen that anyway. Other than that, it's when we there's no denying when we did the changeover. That's when things completely fell apart.
Okay, I accept your clarification, but the other points I
don't disagree. Yes, Barry. Sorry, Barry, I've got your surname's gone into my head. Councillor Spencer, I'm sorry.
So does my wife. Well, both names, yeah. I just want to say something very, very simple, and I said this at the last council meeting to anyone who's thinking of voting for this particular amendment. You don't employ a dog and bark yourself, and you've had advice, and I apologise to the individual. It's not meant personally, but I think that old adage is really true. Take the advice you've been given, irrespective of what you personally think. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Brazil, come on, yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a few comments that have come up. First of all, I was interested to hear Hillary talk about Torbay saying that they were employing managers now to help drive. Of course, Torbay brought their service back in-house so they can use their managers to drive HGVs. That's the whole thing about it. It gives you the flexibility and resilience that a whole council provides, rather than
But they're not providing the service.
Rather than a straitjacket of a company that obviously isn't delivering what it should do. And also, he said that we are sorting out our waste collection problems better than some. I'd love to hear who that some were, because I've not heard of any single authority who's doing a better job as we are, in truth, and that is the truth. And I go on to the bit about that it's because there aren't any HGV drivers, and that's why we shouldn't go back in-house. And I totally agree with Joe there. I mean, do not let the fig leaf of a shortage of HGV drivers cover the fact that FCC have failed in delivering what they promised to deliver in the contract. It is a failure of contract, and we should be using everything in our powers to make sure that they stick to our contract, and if they don't, we should terminate it, and we should bring it back in-house. And I fail to understand, and I can appreciate the lawyers saying it, lawyers always do. The one thing a lawyer likes to do is cover their own backs. And that's exactly what this lawyer has done. not Mr. Fairbairn, but the advice that he's been given. What they said is that, you know what, something might happen, and it could, it doesn't quantify it, doesn't say it's a disaster, it doesn't say don't do it, just says, in my opinion, something might be slightly untoward if you do it. That is not the case. We have here as clear a breach of contract as I think you ever could imagine in the face of FCC not delivering what they said they were going to deliver for us. They haven't done it. Our reputation as a council, our reputation as councillors is being dragged through the dirt because of the failure of them to deliver. The idea that somehow we're giving them the upper hand by saying we're bringing that to the attention of the public, I think is a complete joke, and I don't agree with it. And I would argue, and I appreciate and I respect Barry's sentiments about legal advice, but I think on this case, it is a clear case of us not taking the initiative and saying to FCC, you ain't delivering, you ain't going to deliver. By the way, the hearsay I hear is that they're going to come back to us and say that we're going to have to offer them in the region of £750,000 to £2 million to deliver the service that they said they'd do for us and save us money. That's what I hear, and that's probably what they're going to come back with. So I'd say to people now, this is our opportunity to put us on the front foot, to tell the residents of the South Hams out there that we have had enough, that if they don't deliver it, and we've given them to the end of the year, it's been going wrong for almost a year now, so we would have given them 18 months, nearest damn it, 18 months to sort it out, and they still haven't done that. Well, let's part ways. As I say, it's like in a relationship. When it's not working, somebody has the courage to say, it ain't working, let's go our separate ways for the best of both of us. And I think that that time is slowly arriving, or is quickly arriving, and that we should do it. Members of the public want to see us be decisive. As it is, I feel the council's like the startled rabbit in headlights, not knowing what to do, which way to turn, worried and nervous that we might make. It's been a complete disaster. It's costing us money. Let's get out of it as soon as possible if they can't sort it out. And that's what I say, and I stick to it. And I hope you will support the amendment that Jackie and Mark have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. We just managed it in 3 minutes. Councillor Holloway, and then I'm going to have Councillor Hopwood, and then I'm going to come back to...
Thank you, Chairman. That's a wonderful, rousing speech, Councillor Brazil, because you don't have to accept the responsibility if it's in that very remote instance that it might go tits up. But you have to accept that there is a serious danger of it going that way. If someone who's putting this forward can explain to me where you're going to get HGV drivers from after the end of this year, I'd like to hear it now, please.
All right. Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start with saying, firstly, the reason you can't train up is because you can't get a licence because the DVLA are on strike. So no HGV drivers can be trained up at the minute because DVLA, I think there's a 12-week waiting list just to get a temporary licence. And do you know what, Councillor Brazil, congratulations. Congratulations on your political speech. Shame on you
yes, councillor. I wouldn't wish anybody your side to convince. I don't work with my residents because of they. Anyway, I have got the father of the house. I think you would call Councillor Pennington. Would you like to speak, please? You don't need to speak. Sit up, councillor. It's okay. It's fine. Sit down.
Yes.
All right.
Just let me just say a few words. I congratulate Councillor Brazil on your speech. I think it was a down-to-earth speech. The most important thing that we should all be thinking about is our residents. Never mind anything else. Our resident services to our residents, we want them first class. If we have to pay more money, then so be it. And we could talk about drivers. I'm sure that if drivers were paid more and we offered them more, we would get some. Now, I can recall when we had it in-house, this goes back to the 1970s, when I was chairman then of the Health and General Services Committee, under which this service prospered. And the relationship, I would never have dreamt, ever, that that relationship would have been dissolved. That was a first-class service which everybody appreciated, everybody. You did have the occasional complaint, yes, you do with everything. But it was a damn good service. It was a service that put people first and residents first, and that's what we should get back to. And I think we should be going back to an in-house service. It will cost us, but it's a service that is essential. It is one of those we used to list them. Essential services come first. Essential services. And that's what I feel I am here for. Just to give service to the people.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. I'm going to say a few words, and I'm going to go back to Councillor Hodgson because it's her amendment of the final say. And then the leader after that. Sorry. Anybody? I don't like to go here on sides. I don't want to know about sides. Anybody who thinks that I am not interested in my residents is ridiculous. The problem being is that we got to make sure, talking about money, Councillor Pennington, you don't know how much you're talking about. That's the problem. So we can't go there at the present time, as I can see it. I personally, as a businessman in my lifetime, have been to the High Court twice on legal issues with groups of farmers with legal representation, and with them we beat two big national companies and won the day. One took 3 years, one took 4 years because of the legal niceties. We don't want that. So we've got to be sure whatever we do is correct. And looking after the money, as you pointed out, is just as important for our residents long term as the service we give them today. So we've got to be very careful what we do, and we have to do that. And we need to think what we're actually doing. It's easy to say go back. My son-in-law is a HGV driver in Bristol, and he gets people regularly knocking on his window every day offering him more money to change jobs, and that's the case everywhere at the present time. Any idea, if we went back to the old way, that we could get any more drivers than anybody else can is a complete nonsense. Sorry, it's just not going to happen. So I'm going to go back to Councillor Hodgson, and then I'll finish up with Mrs. Pearce, I think, if I'm correct. Right.
Thank you. I think Councillor Long, as the seconder of the motion, also needs to speak at some point. We should have perhaps been invited to speak at the beginning, but anyway, so be it. Procedures are a little bit all over the place today, and it's very obvious to me when I raised the point at the beginning of this meeting as to why the executive minutes had been brought before the motions. But anyway, we are where we are now, and I think it's good that we are looking at these two options together. I'd like to go back to I've been a councillor since 2011, 10 years for district council, And I don't remember before so many letters coming to me from residents asking me to not pay their council tax, really bitterly complaining, not just writing once, but writing several times, very, very upset. Because I'm aware that, you know, with Dartington and Staverton, some parts of Staverton really haven't been reached very well at all. So I think we need to bear in mind that we could actually get a problem from residents raising some claims against us. What happens to the resident who actually gets bitten by the rat that's been sitting in their bin for nearly 10 months, perhaps, some of them, you know, where we've got the compost rotting now. That's and this time of year, that warm autumn that we've got, we're actually sort of like taking quite high risk. It's not all just dry dusted sitting looking at the solicitors meeting each other. It's actually what's happening with our residents, because they're not fools. They're not going to sit quietly. They will perhaps think about other things. And I'm not suggesting I'm inciting it because I know this is public. I'm really not. But I'm just going to remind us that in 2015, residents of Dartington took this council to court and won. I sat there in Temple Bar in London when they actually won a case because one of our planning officers made a mistake. And so, you know, don't think for 1 minute that just because they're residents doesn't mean to say they can't take legal action and actually challenge us very seriously. And I think that they would have a good case because there are so many of them who have been so let down by this, and it continues, that I think this is why I feel so strongly about this motion, because I think they have to see that we are serious. We're not going to start considering it in December. We're actually looking to what FCC said when they sat here in this very room, when was it, May, June, and said, give us 6 months. Well, December is 6 months. And I think if they haven't done it by then, there's no reason why we can't hold them to their account of their own words. And that's really why this is stronger than just saying we'll start considering then. I take on board that we are behind the scenes doing all sorts of things, but the residents need to see it for themselves. I think the more we just sit on it, the more we look like idiots. And I think this is a strong motion. I'm going to support it, despite the concerns that have been raised by Mr. Fairburn and the legal advice. I've looked and thought about that very carefully, and I don't think this puts us at risk. And it's not just about going back in-house, it's actually looking at partnership with other local authorities. And in terms of what's being said about the HGV drivers, well, that was kind of coming anyway, because anybody who voted Brexit kind of knew that and the rural workers and all those kind of things that we're really suffering from was going to be an issue. And if those workers stop working for FCC, some of them came from us in the first place, they'll just jump back. They don't care who they work for, and I should imagine a lot of them would perhaps prefer to work for South Hams. But don't forget that this problem didn't start with the HGV drivers. It started with FCC moving the rounds a year ago, almost to this month. That's when it started going pear-shaped.
Okay, Sir Hodgson, can you round up, please?
Well, that's all I wanted to say, thank you.
Okay.
And if I just might also say, there was one of the councillors... No, it's separate. One of the other councillors actually mentioned a part of the female anatomy and used it in actually a derogatory way. And I take exception to that. So I think he knows who he is. And I would ask it to not be the sort of language that gets used in this chamber.
Understand what you say. I understand where you're coming from. Yes. Sir Long, I think. No? Councillor Pearce. All right. Okay. Well, it's. Where am I? Right, well, Councillor Long.
Chairman, thank you. This has been a lot of discussion around this, and I can only sort of reiterate what Councillor Hodgson has said and many others, and Councillor Pennington behind me. I think we owe it to our residents to really move this ahead. And as has already been said, this has been dragging on since October, November last year. And can I also say that HGV drivers being missing is not the reason for half of an estate, half of a road being missed. That is management incompetence of supervisors as well. And I will pay supreme acknowledgement to the officers that we've parachuted in and other members of our staff and what everybody has been doing behind the scenes. It's been very important. But this motion really does indicate to the residents that we mean to move ahead and provide the service that this area should have and our residents should have. And I think not to do this, we would be wrong not to do this. We need to do it now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Smart.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't want to turn this into a game of top trumps or whatever, but would Councillor Hodgson care to give us the benefit of her legal qualifications, which mean that she considers that her considerations of this are superior to the legal advice that we've been given? And I don't want to, well, semantics possibly, but you've made, Councillor Holway made a comment and you've taken exception to that. The comment that he made is an agricultural comment. When an animal dies, it lies on its back and it goes teats up, okay?
Right. Councillor Rowe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, I would like to ask if we were to vote in favour of this amendment, and presumably that is against the advice that we've received from Mitchell Moores, who are our solicitors and advisors, through Mr. Fairburn. I would imagine that there is no firm of solicitors, lawyers, whatever, who would defend us in the High Court because we didn't listen to the advice we were given. So I would ask the mover and the seconder of this amendment, who do they think is going to defend us if we need defending in the High Court? Presumably Councillor Hodgson, because she seems to have all the qualifications. Thank you.
Councillor Holway.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry if I got carried away. I'd like to apologise to anyone who took offence at my terminology earlier. Thank you.
Leader, would you like to?
Yes, I'd just like to come back before we vote on this amendment to say that I really take exception to the majority of the opposition accusing us of not doing everything we can to sort this out. Now, it is the last situation we would have wanted, and actually what we could do with is a little bit of support from the opposition rather than them making political gains out of it the whole time, because actually it's all of our problem, and you are doing precious little to sort it out. You are actually making things worse by encouraging people to write letters to the papers, which we can patently see have been written by you, by encouraging everybody to jump on board with the rubbish waste collection and all the rest of it. No, Councillor Hodgson, you sit down. You've had your 3 minutes. I haven't. So you sit down. No, you've been accusing us of not doing things as if we are sitting around doing nothing about it. Now, I can assure you there is a huge amount of work going on behind the scenes, and we are doing everything possible to sort this out. And if you heard what my executive members say to FCC in the weekly meetings, well, all I can say is it's a good thing it's a closed shop, because it's a good thing those meetings aren't recorded. But I assure you that if we could have sorted this out last week, we would have done. If we could have sorted it out a month ago or 3 months ago, we would have done. But there are some intractable problems that we have encountered, and we are doing everything we can to sort them out. But it would be jolly sight better if you could actually come with us, and instead of telling people that our commingled waste is going to landfill and things like that, if you told them the truth, you all know where this is going, and if you don't, just look on the website because it's all explained there.
Right, I think we've heard enough. It's time to go for the vote on this, on the amendment. Okay? Okay. All those in favour of Councillor Hodgson's amendment?
That's 12 in favour. Thank you, Chair.
Those against?
That's 17 against. Therefore, the amendment is lost. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That we will now move on to the main piece of the main. I'm thinking about wrong word. The substantive motion. I'll get it right in a minute. Are we going to debate that one? No, or do we go straight to it? Mr. White. Pardon? Oh, right. Councillor Bowdry.
I didn't speak on the amendment, but I do want to speak in particular on this and pick up a couple of the points which have been made previously. Members are fully aware, and they can say other things, that we are striving like mad as an executive and officers in order to make the contract work. I see it as my duty as the executive member to work with FCC to make it work, and that is what I am trying to do, and that's what we need to do. But just picking up a couple of points made in the debate, if I may, and I'm also picking, I'm afraid, on Councillor Pennington. Talk is made of paying more. If FCC or any local authority in this country paid the rates of pay which have been talked about for drivers of £50,000, they would not have the funds to do it. It just would not be sustainable. And when it is said that, and Councillor Pennington said, if it costs more, so be it, costs who more? We as a council only have taxpayers' money to spend. It would be costing the taxpayers more to do it, way and above what we would be allowed to do by increasing council tax by the government. And can I just assure them, if you read the substantive motions, that if it is necessary, we will look at all possible options for the way to go forward. Possible options which may or may not include bringing it back in-house. That might not be the best option to be considered. But at the moment, we are working strenuously with FCC to make it work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowdry. Councillor Bowdry, I'm going to say something I don't always say every day of the week, but I think you need to be congratulated, actually, on the way you have done what you've done. I know you don't want it, but you've stuck to your guns, and I think it's brilliant. I know. It's all right. I'll give him a lift home any day of the week. No, I know. I want to also say, not you, but there's a lot of officers.
Interrupting you to say, I believe in public duty, and that's why I do it.
That's fine, and I understand that, and anybody can see that. But I also think there's a lot of officers in the background. They're doing an awful lot of work that should be appreciated, because I mean it's been an incredibly bad time, and it's not easy here chairing this meeting with the difficulties we have, but we've got to come through them, and hopefully we'll. And at the end of the day, Councillor Pennington actually said it. The most important thing is service to our residents, and we've all got slightly different ways on the way we're going to get there, but that is the most important thing. Yeah, I'll go Councillor Rose, and I'll come to you two afterwards.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say, because we've been shouted at quite a lot over here, and just because we see things a bit differently doesn't mean we're trying to play politics. Exactly. Yeah, come on then, come on. Yeah, shame on me. Just because we see things a bit differently, I haven't said to a single resident that anything political. I don't make this political. The reason why I want this is because I genuinely think it's worth looking at, and because I genuinely believe it. And I just don't think we should be shouting across the chamber, shame on you, just because people see things a bit differently. Thank you very much.
No, there was 2 or 3 people who wanted to speak. No, I mean, I know Councillor Brown sat back in the corner. You can actually speak again now, because we're speaking on the main
Aren't I lucky? Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I realise things have got, as Councillor Rose just pointed out, fairly heated in here over the past half an hour or so. I don't believe that opposition members don't want to serve their community. And I, in an attempt to maybe try and strike a conciliatory tone, what I would urge you to do is support this motion, because presumably, although you believe that this isn't the best way to go, you still want some kind of council to be here to provide some kind of waste service. So, therefore, as a matter of consolation, I would really ask that you support this as a way forward, which we know we can try and work to. And, you know, I don't doubt for a second every single officer at this council and the leadership and the rest of it are working towards improving the situation. But please do support this. I know your amendment has fallen, but please do support this so that we can try and work forward. Thank you.
I'm going to have 2 more. Councillor Taylor, I think. Right, okay. Councillor Hawkins and then Councillor Spencer, and then I'm going to go to the vote because we've at it for 2 hours and I should be getting in trouble with certain members if I don't.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't speak to the amendment, so I thought I could speak at this stage, and that's why I'd like to do so. I have first-hand experience of Torbay Council. They are having just as many problems and difficulties as we are. That's a Lib Dem-run council. It may be in-house, but it's a Lib Dem council, and they're having just as many problems as we are. I have bins there that haven't been emptied for 6 to 8 weeks, and they just, when you phone up the council there, you don't even able to actually speak to an officer. They won't give you a number because they won't take responsibility for this. So I've got first-hand experience. FCC do have a contract with this council and with the residents of this council, our taxpayers. And it was your group that actually said that we don't take responsibility for representing our residents. I take great offence to that. I represent my residents. I'm having emails continually, as you all are, and I'm working on my behalf of residents to get missed collections picked up. Dartmouth yesterday, I'm sorry being parochial, Dartmouth yesterday had a considerable amount of Dartmouth missed, and I'm trying to do all I possibly can during this meeting to get those bins collected. So FCC do have a contract with us, and they have to take it responsibly. Now, I would ask you as councillors, in your personal life, when you have legal advice, how many of you go against it? In your personal life, in your business life, do you actually have a solicitor, a barrister, and then you ignore them? Really? I think that's very brave if any of you actually do. Our executive are doing all we possibly can. We're meeting FCC officers on a weekly basis. We are doing exactly what you're saying publicly behind the scenes, and we're doing it strongly, and we're doing it very clearly to them. I would urge our officers, because I do find it sad that FCC haven't been able to come to the next overview and scrutiny meeting, I would urge our officers to ensure that meeting takes place as soon as possible, perhaps even before that meeting, because FCC need to hear what we have been hearing here as a council, and you need to be able to express your concerns and difficulties with them like we as the executive do week on week. So please support this, because you have to listen to your legal advice, and that is the most important thing, because it's going to cost us millions, if not.
Last one, Councillor Spencer, and I got your surname right this time.
I was going to put this in my top pocket if it helps, you know. Sorry, seriously. I am absolutely delighted that what's on the board in front of you is actually there. And one of the most important elements to my mind is the use of a time frame, principles of SMART, S-M-A-R-T. And this is the first time, I think, that I've seen this time frame used in the context of FCC. I think that the fiasco with FCC, and I can't think of a better word than that, has gone on for too long. I think the council's reputation has been severely damaged. I think individual councillors' reputations have been sorely tested. And I know that my credibility has been stretched to an absolute limit with my residents. I think the crucial part to me, apart from the fact that there's a time frame up there, is the fact that we're saying that we will be forced to consider exercising any available contractual obligations. It's flexibility we're doing. And I would hope that everyone would buy in to that fact, if nothing else. So I will support the motion. I think it's a good one. The time frame is brilliant. I'd like that to be tomorrow, but that's not practical. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. And I'm going to leave it there. I think it's time we went to the vote and had a break. We've had 2 hours of pretty tough going, and we need a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back, okay? So let's vote. I think just about everything's going to be said, has been said. I think we'll go to the vote.
Pleased by what I'm going to say, actually.
Okay, I will bend and see what you say.
Curiosity. Well, since I wrote or submitted 95% of this, I just wanted to say that I will be supporting it. I just wanted to thank Councillor Pearce for actually submitting it at the Executive. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hodgson. And I'll also thank Councillor Spencer for his last piece just now. I think he summed up things very well. Thank you very much. So we will now go to the vote. All those in favour, please.
That's 29 unanimous for the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everybody, for that. That is a very good result. We will have a 10-minute break, and we will then come back again. Okay? Right, members, we've had a farmer's 10 minutes. It's okay. We're a little bit longer than we should have been. Anyway, right, we'll move on to item number 8, motions on notice. We've got 6 here. We'll see what we can do. Right, the first one is from Councillor Pearce and Councillor Baston. So, Councillor Pearce, would you simply move your motion, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to move the motion as printed on the agenda paper.
Thank you. Councillor Baston?
Yes, second the motion, Chairman.
Councillor Pearce, would you like to introduce your motion, please?
Thank you. I think we're all aware of the problems that have been encountered this summer from people who wanted to come in and work the season, from families who haven't been able to find anywhere to live because so many properties have turned themselves into Airbnbs. Now, I think we have every sympathy with people wanting to come and stay in the South Hams, but we have to look at the sustainable future of our district. And if people can't afford to live here, to work, then the system's going to break down because we can't have innumerable tourists if there's nobody here to service the businesses that they are using. We have the joint local plan. The joint local plan is working well, but the joint local plan is drawn up on government guidelines and is obeying what they want. So whilst we're building the right number of houses to the requirement of the local plan, which has been approved by the inspectorate, we are not building the right kind of houses for people in this district. And I think increasingly the policy officers are becoming aware of this fact. They can see, as well as we can, that the housing policy, which is promoted nationally, is not working in areas like the South Hams. And that's why, with Councillor Bastone, I'm bringing this motion, and I don't apologise for it being long, because it has a number of actions in it which complement and are in addition to what we already have in Better Lives for All, and which we have already passed through housing strategies from the Housing Department. So this is in addition to all that, it's complementary to it, and I'm not suggesting a talking shop, I'm suggesting we get on and do this stuff, and I'd be more than happy to take any questions before we move into the debate on it. And if anybody's got anything that they'd like to add to it, be happy to consider any amendments in that spirit. But I think all these things are essential building blocks to starting to get things sorted out in the district so that people who want to live here and work here can afford to do so and can find somewhere decent to live. It doesn't address the affordable housing crisis because that has to be addressed through other means, and I think we have provision for all that within what we're doing. There is no silver bullet to affordable housing, but I think there is more we could do, and I'm talking to officers to see how that can be worked out. But in particular, I think when the allocations come through on large sites, we need to be a bit cuter about what we ask for and what we get from the developers. But I'll leave it there for the moment and see if there are any questions that people want to ask.
Councillor Baston, do you want to speak now or do you want to save it for the debate?
I'd like to reserve the right to speak at the end, and I will speak at the end if that's okay.
Right,
Chairman?
thank you. So we'll open it up to the debate. No, questions, sorry.
I would like to make an amendment, but do I do that on the next part?
Yeah. Want to make an amendment?
That's fine, Chair, through you, because we don't have questions for amendment or motions on notice. It's now, we're in debate if you like, so it's appropriate. If Councillor Sweet wants to put an amendment now, she can do so.
You can put one now if you wish to in debate.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy to read through all of this and sort of welcome that Judy was hoping that there would be some things to add. I don't feel that there's anything about land, like expensive rentals, private landlord rentals. So I would like to make an amendment, which is to lobby government to enforce landlord rent charge caps, which are relative to both local wages and in perspective to social housing rents. If I have a seconder.
Could you repeat what you want to say so that Mr. White can put it all down, please?
Lobby government to enforce landlord rent charge caps, which are relative to both local wages and in perspective to social housing rents.
Seconder and Councillor Long. Okay. Right.
Do I speak to that now, or? Yeah, I think we all know that private rentals are often, mostly very out of perspective to local wages. With so many people moving down to the area, places are snapped up before locals can even get a chance. I know in Totnes there's nothing, or there'll be like one place that the agencies will have, and it will just be gone. I mean, I live in a housing association house, and the rents on my estate are more than double the social housing. I mean, I'm not obviously suggesting in my amendment that landlord rents should be the same as social housing, but they should be in perspective too in a certain area. For example, not more than 50 or 60% higher, but not kind of 120% higher, because, you know, locals are utterly priced out. So, I mean, in my opinion, houses and homes shouldn't be a big business. You know, I don't think that we should have, you know, private landlords that just can buy up huge amounts of housing stock all over the country and make a profit out of it. But obviously that's, you know, a huge debate. So, yeah, I think this is something that's been talked about. I know sort of it always kind of bubbles up in Parliament. I know it was talked about, you know, in the previous government, and it just hasn't come forward. We've had this issue for like many years in our area, but the COVID crisis has just impounded it so much that I know in Totnes there's you know, young people like live in sheds and caravans in people's gardens and live in trucks and caravans sort of all over the place, and it's, you know, it is a choice, but the choices aren't vast, and the choices certainly aren't that you can go and rent a place in the town where you live, because that just isn't a thing in the South Hams. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Long, do you want to speak now or withhold until the debate?
I'll withhold for the debate.
Right. Councillor Pearce?
Thank you, Chairman, for letting me speak to the amendment. Members, I think what Councillor Sweet is talking about is rent controls. Now, rent controls have been put on in the past, and all they do is force landlords to flee the market. I would have another suggestion, which is already in the paper, and that is that we actually advertise Seymour lettings more widely and try and persuade landlords to let through Seymour lettings. Now, the advantage of this is that the percentage charge is less than the average estate agent charge, and so the landlord can charge a lower rent but still receive the same amount of money. If we try and get rent controls, and I wouldn't advocate that at all, we will find landlords fleeing the market right into the arms of Airbnb, which is exactly where we don't want them to be, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins? Yeah, well, we had to go to the amendment to this first, deal with the amendment, and then we'll come back to the main afterwards, okay? Right. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Pearce invited additions, so I don't know whether you want to add this one on as part of the amendments that could be put on. I mean, I'm not asking for anything to be changed. I'm just
One at a
asking for
time?
an add-on. So you want, do you
On
want, okay.
Right.
I just thought it might be sort of seen in context because it could possibly be voted on all in one go because it would be.
We
I
can't.
don't know. Anyway,
Apparently, we can't do that. So.
you don't want to hear it.
Well, as a rule, it should be one amendment at any given time. If it's directly linked to Councillor Sweet and Councillor Long's amendment on here, it may be a tidying up exercise. Yeah.
Is it? Can you? Okay, go on, read it.
No, sorry. So this is number 11 or 12. Seek opportunities to invest in council-owned social housing with high sustainability specification to support those on a low income who are unable to afford affordable rented housing. And that affordable is in parentheses.
Right, Mr. White, I'm after some advice.
So where we are at, we've got an amendment on the table from Councillor Sweet and Long, and it's whether they wish to weave Councillor Hodgson's suggestion into the one amendment, or we deal with Councillor Sweet and Councillor Long's amendment first.
I really like Councillor Hodgson's amendment, and I'd prefer it to be separate from this amendment. So I'd be happy to have an 11 and a 12. I would be happy to change the word from rent charge cap or change to rent controls to enforce landlord rent controls, if that's easier to recognise.
If Councillor Long's happy to accept that, that will supersede the reference to the word charge caps.
I'm happy to second Councillor Hodgson's secondary amendment, if that's, or is that just too confusing? Okay, sorry.
One step at a time, I think. Councillor Brazil, you put your hand up. Say something.
Yeah, just to say that, look, rent controls, I don't really know how they affect the market, if I'm perfectly honest. So I'm nervous about supporting it because, I mean, Councillor Pearce has said, she said that it was going to drive landlords out, which I thought was great. I thought, well, I'll support it then. And then she said, but they'll go to Airbnb, and if that's the case, then that doesn't really help. You know, my view would probably be that I'd like to see a better taxation system whereby unearned income is increased greatly to drive the landlords out rather than rent control. So I totally agree with the sort of sentiments of what's been trying to achieve here. I'm just not, if I'm perfectly honest, I'm not sure this is the right way to do it in my mind.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Chairman. To an extent, I agree with an element of what Councillor Brazil has said, actually. I couldn't support the idea of rent controls because in some ways it would have a distorting element on the market, because if you put in a rent control or rent cap, then the incentive is surely for the landlord to immediately put it up to that amount of money because they're not going to be able to get any more for it. Thus, if anything, incurring a greater monthly rental fee or charge on the people that are living there. So I'm afraid I couldn't. I sort of understand the sentiment behind it, but I certainly couldn't support that as an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I'll come back to Councillor Long. Right, thank you. Happy with that, Mr. White?
More than happy, Chair. So where we're at, members, we are now voting on whether little 11, as per the screens, which is an amendment, is included as part of the substantive motion. Therefore, members, all in favour, please. That's 5 in favour of the amendment. Thank you, Chair. Those against?
Those against?
17 against, thank you, Chair. That therefore is lost.
Thank you. That's lost. Now we're back on the main.
We're back on to Councillor Hodgson's
Yes.
second amendment, which
Oh,
has been
right,
seconded
yes.
by Councillor Sweet, which I've now got and I'll put on the screen in place of what's there now, Chair.
Okay. I'll give everybody a chance to look at it for a second. No pressure, Mr. White, no pressure. Where's the spell? Councillor Hodgson, is that the gist of what you were trying to say?
It's just really important to try and look at a diversity of housing because we are really, I mean, it's creating massive knock-on problems like the fact we've got 1,000 care worker vacancies, we've got social worker vacancies, we've got all sorts of vacancies. HGV driver, dare I say it, but maybe that's not the issue because they can drive in. But I do think it's a real issue in terms of the housing crisis that we haven't got the diversity, and it is at the lower end. And we've got an awful lot of people, you know, camping in caravans and goodness knows what at the moment. So I think this might help.
Yes, all right.
Hi, could I speak to that?
What do you want?
I just was going to ask Councillor Hodgson if she would like to change one word, actually, if that's all right. Jackie, would you like to add actively seek or immediately seek, just to kind of make it a little bit more robust and proactive? Thanks.
Councillor Pearce?
Councillor Hodgson, I appreciate what you're trying to do there, and I can see what you are trying to do, but I would suggest that this is, at the moment, covered by number 10 in the list of actions in this, in my motion, or our motion, because the particular thing about Z-Pods is that you can have a one-bedroom unit and you can kind of stack them together, and very quickly you've got quite a lot of accommodation there for the sort of people you're talking about. And they are actually really low carbon, easy to run, and pretty comfortable and pretty stylish. They're really quite nice, but easy to put up and quick to get going.
Right, anybody else wish to speak on this? Councillor Sweet, you wanted to... Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a second. If you want to come in, Councillor Smurden.
Just with, are we sorry, we're dealing with the amendment.
Yes, we are. Right, Councillor Sweet, if you just want to say your piece.
Yeah, I was just going to sort of reiterate the need for immediate action on housing for our local people, just local normal people that are working and at college, and younger people that want to stay in the area. It's not necessarily people that would fit maybe the more criteria of the Z-Pods. I mean, Jackie sort of mentioned about the huge gap in care home workers, and we want our local people to stay in this area because there is actually lots of work here, but there isn't anywhere to live, and people don't just want a Z-Pod, they actually want a proper house that they can sit down and thrive in and raise a family. So I think both things are really necessary. They're quite a little bit different, but they're both really valid and necessary.
Thank you.
Chairman, a Z-Pod is a proper house. We're not thinking of what the other things are called, something bins or whatever Cornwall have been putting up. A Z-Pod is a proper unit.
Anybody else wish to speak on this? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hodgson.
I could just reply to Councillor Pearce's comments about that number 10 covers it. I think really what I'm trying to say, as I said earlier, it's really about diversity, and I think council-owned social housing traditionally has actually been provided really good homes with good gardens for people. And I think, Z-Pods, I mean, I know what Z-Pods are. I think they're great. I think I welcome what I see in number 10, and I actually welcome the rest of the motion as proposed. But I just think I was just really trying to expand it a bit to make sure that there are families who are on very low income. That's why we've got such a rise currently that's remained since as COVID is declining. We've got a huge uptake on food banks. There's a lot of people needing a lot of support, and I think we need to look at social. We did actually agree a motion a few years ago that we would consider social housing investments from council, and we haven't done it. So I was just bringing it back into the list. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Callaghan?
Thank you. I too welcome this motion, declaration of the housing crisis, and some very good points there. I mean, we have a definite crisis in Kingsbridge. Yes. Can you not hear me? Is that better? Yeah, I was going to ask for an amendment, but I was wondering whether I could combine it with Jackie's. I'm not entirely sure, rather than going on ad infinitum. Should I say what it is, and then we can see whether we can combine it or not? There is a Cornwall Council, for example, are purchasing buildings to help single homeless people, to try to end the use of short-term expensive hotel and B&B accommodation. And we have the same issue here. And it's sort of on a similar line to that, but more specific, and I don't know whether it can be combined with this one or whether we have to go to another amendment or not. That's what I wanted to add. They're purchasing 12 buildings as the first of 60, and I thought perhaps we could look to do the same. It's a more kind of specific thing to do.
Don't think we can combine it. We'll do it. Yeah, just come back in a minute, okay? Pierce.
Yeah, can I just reply to Councillor O'Callaghan? Cornwall are using bunker bins. These are the temporary units that you're talking about. I would not be keen in putting any of our residents into something that called itself a bunker bin, I'm afraid. A Z-Pod I don't balk at because I know what they look like on the outside and the inside. But I think a bunker bin, they've just got the wrong name to make it acceptable. Sorry.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'll be supporting this. I just feel like I don't think 10 or 11 necessarily need to be either or. And I really agree with having as we're in a crisis, the more opportunities that we can seek, the better. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Kemp. Can you talk into your...
Sorry. So the question was, what are the rules surrounding compulsory purchase or something similar to utilise some of the wealth of property that we have above shops, etc., and people that own property that it's run down, they're old and knackered, and so is their house, and they need a bit of help to make it a rentable standard. What can we do to...
Mr. Brooks, you've been sat there a long time with nothing to do. You've got something now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. There are powers, CPO powers, but the problem with CPOs is that they still rely on market value. So although they can force an acquisition on an unwilling vendor, it doesn't change the viability of bringing that building back into use. So they exist, but I don't think they help in this particular case. But we do have other legislation around empty homes, which we are proactive in doing. But if I can be really blunt, empty homes are a real sideshow in terms of the numbers of homes. So I know there's things that we can focus on because it seems like an obvious thing. But if you look at the numbers of empty homes across the district, it's very, very low. And actually, even if we brought them all back in, it really wouldn't make a significant impact on the issues. So it's not necessarily a place of focus.
I'm seeing exactly the same thing on lots of high streets. So obviously, if there's 20 available flats in Kingsbridge, there might be 20 in other towns. And so actually, little by little, you're helping people that live in the immediate area.
Chairman, sorry.
Well, you've been given...
My apologies. There is a difference between empty homes and homes which are essentially flats above shops. I think is a slightly different issue, and I accept that point. Apologies.
Right. Well, we're going off we're going off the thing at the present time, off the debate. Councillor Brazil, perhaps we can come back.
Well, what I was going to say, Chairman, is I think that what this debate is illustrating is that there are numerous examples or strategies that members would like to see introduced in any housing crisis, and very much appreciate this motion coming forward. You'll see also that Denise and Susie have put one much shorter, but actually what they asked for is that there would be a working group set up, and that might have given the opportunity for a much wider the wider membership of the council to come up with ideas that they wanted to put forward, because I'm quite happy to support this amendment number 11. I see that it is closely linked to number 10, but I don't see that they're mutually exclusive. I think that they can work together. So I just say that I'll support this, and it may be that what we should do is, rather than us coming up with this whole series of tabled amendments, all adding a little bit or taking away a little bit, that we actually take on board what Denise and Susie wanted to do, and that was to actually have a member working group that could make recommendations to both the executive and to the full council as and when, building on this excellent motion that's been brought forward by Judy and Hilary.
Thank you. Councillor Smerdon, and then Councillor Baston.
Thank you, Chairman. Everybody seems to be reiterating what Cornwall Council have done. I think it's in the newspaper of the day that Cornwall Council have actually bought they bought two campsites, which they're planning to use to house people, I think, who are currently housed in hotels. But what I also was going to say was something similar to what Councillor Brazil was saying. I think what we want is effectively just an item 11 that says that tacked onto this, that we will explore all avenues available to provide affordable housing to our residents. Effectively, that was what I felt.
Thank you. Councillor Baston?
Just wanted to add something to the melting pot. We have been given a government grant of £250,000 for rough sleepers, and we're currently spending some of that money to purchase a property in the South Hams for use for rough sleepers, and hopefully we'll be able to use more of that fund to buy other flats for rough sleepers.
Right, thank you. We're back to we need to put this amendment, do we not? Unless anybody else has got it. Okay.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Actually, I go along with some of what Councillor Kemp said because going back probably 15, 18 years, we did look at high streets, 4 streets, whatever in our towns. And if you go along in the evenings, particularly in the winter time, there will be no lights on above the shops, which indicates that very often the flats above shops are not being used. They used to be offices or stores, but offices we know now are pretty much gone because people are doing more work from home. And I think that is a possibility that we could look at above shops for possible properties that could be perhaps rented, brought back into housing. And also Totnes did have a great opportunity with the former Unigate factory, the Dawes Creamery, which was the Atmos project, and that fell by the wayside, so because it wasn't brought forward. So I think Totnes really need to look at that again. I think the planning has gone by the wayside now, but that could be brought back perhaps. I think we've got a lot of opportunities where we could bring back housing without spending an awful lot of money if we could do it, but I think that's something else for the melting pot too. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that we all realise that we have difficulties with this housing situation. I'm going to ask you now to vote on this amendment, please, to move things on. All those in favour?
That is 23 in favour of the amendment. Thank you, members. Those against, please. 1 against.
1 against.
The amendment is therefore declared carried, members, and is part of the substantive motion. Thank you.
No, we go to debate the substantive motion now, Mr. White. Right. Yes.
Chairman, I'd like to table another amendment, if that's possible. Just a quick one, and it's been debated before, so I won't say anything because people know that I support it massively, and that is about double council tax on second and holiday homes. If the loophole is closed on people's flipping to business rates, then the opportunity for this council to raise hundreds of thousands of pounds in double council tax on second homes and holiday homes would come forward. So I would propose an amendment that simply says lobby government to allow local authorities to charge up to 200% council tax on second holiday homes, as they do, of course, in Wales now.
Thank you. Right. Any comments, debate on Councillor Brazil's amendment? Councillor Hodgson?
Just to say that I support it, and it's something that has been supported on various occasions actually by this council over the years. So I think it's just good to see it included in this shopping list of measures. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have any other comments, please? Can I ask a question about, are we not already doing this? I mean, yeah, but thanks for saying very much. Well, we'll go for a vote then. Councillor Pearce, do you accept Councillor Brazil's add-on?
Chairman, I think we've run a pretty good campaign at Westminster to get business rates changed. Whether we're going to be successful in getting 200% council tax, I actually would be happy if holiday homes were paying council tax, because they'd be paying the parish precept and we'd be getting our dues for bins and emptying litter bins and cleaning toilets and things like that. But I am slightly diffident about penalising people for helping us to run a business. If people are letting their houses but paying council tax rather than business rates, they are paying into the local community, and I actually find it slightly distasteful to penalise them for doing that. So I really haven't made up my mind on this one, and so I say to people, vote as you like, but what we can do about that at this stage, I think, is doubtful, whereas I think we're winning the war on the business rates aspect of things. What the Welsh Government does sometimes is good and sometimes isn't so good. So, but that's so, as you can see, I'm sitting on the fence a bit.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that's been done on this issue already in Westminster and elsewhere. I think that second homes and holiday homes are destroying our communities, and therefore I would be very happy to penalise them. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sweet.
Hi, yeah, just a quick one, really. In some ways they're destroying our local communities, but in some way they do bring work and they bring that sort of vibrancy and people enjoy the area. So I don't think it's even about penalising. It's just about paying more into the communities that they can actually be part of. And just bolstering up the services. If the money is going out of the local councils, then it isn't if the profit from the second homes and the holiday homes is going out of local councils, it isn't really sort of benefiting us. So it is almost like just having a little percentage charge on some of the profit from those second homes. So, to make our communities better and stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. I think basically we'll go to a vote. You've heard what's been said, and make your minds up as to what you think. Yeah, Councillor Pearce has made her point. Let's go to the vote. Yes.
Yeah.
Part of the substantive motion.
Yeah. The amendment, members, is actually point 12.
Okay. All those in favour?
That's 21 in favour. Thank you, Chair.
Those against?
With 5 against. Thank you, Chair.
So that's carried. So now we go back to the substantive motion. Have we debated that enough, Mr. White? Councillor Brown?
Yes, I had wanted to speak on the substantive motion. I first of all, as other councillors have said, thanks to Councillor Pearce and Bastone for bringing this motion forward. Particularly part 1 of this motion regarding the charging of council tax on plots with planning permission after a certain period of time. I know that one is supported by both of our local members of Parliament. I'm very much in favour of it. And I also particularly support part 7 of this motion, which I suggest is a real and practical measure for relieving some of the pressure on our existing housing stock. What I'd hope is that younger generations do in fact end up standing a genuine chance of buying property within the South Hams, because we certainly need to have them here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins?
I'd just like to thank Councillor Pearce for bringing this forward. I think it's a very important item for all our residents. I would like to just highlight number 3. I have been requesting officers to take the waste disposal issue of second homes holiday lets very seriously for many years, because we obviously have considerable problems in the summer months when a lot of holiday lets just say put your rubbish in the public bins, which causes a huge amount of problems for our waste collection, which we've debated long enough already. in Kingsware, we have recently had a housing needs survey done, and the results from that highlighted that the average house price was £783,000, which is absolutely frightening. And we are trying to do all we possibly can, as we are in the whole of the South Hams, to actually provide affordable housing for local people and local families. And we had that result this week, and it's absolutely frightening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smerdon.
Thank you, Chairman. It's quite interesting that a lot of the, certainly the first 2 or 3 requirements of this require, primary legislation. They're going to need a lot of lobbying by our MPs, by anybody. Perhaps I could suggest there is a new person at the Department for Housing and Local Government, I think the Right Honourable Michael Gove. Can I suggest that we maybe invite him down and Councillor Brazil, Councillor Brazil can escort him around the South Hams and give him the benefit. That is a serious request.
He has been spotted in Salcombe in the past.
Shame he didn't get to East Pro.
Councillor Pearce, did I see you wave your hand in the air?
No, it was only to say that Michael Gove has been spotted in Salcombe in the past.
Did he leave?
That should help to lower the house prices there.
Councillors, I think we've had a long day. Let's have a vote on this substantive motion.
Just a minute, Chairman. You gave me the opportunity, surely, to speak.
I wouldn't deprive you of that, Councillor Baston. Come on.
Just a bit of one-upmanship, really.
Yes.
Gove was actually in Dartmouth during the regatta, so this year. Anyway. England is a great, diverse and varied country, which is partly what makes it so special. So why is it that governments have historically so often to have a one-size-fits-all approach? If we are truly to have levelling up and devolution, it needs to be focused on local decision-making. Yet all too often the default setting of government is to seek to have more centralised powers and focus on prescriptive processes. For as long as I have been in local government, the central theme has been one of removing powers and discretion with a national system. Yet the housing and regeneration issues we face are vastly different across this country. If we are going to be successful, we need to find solutions that are right for each village, town and city across the country. We must build back local. This cannot be done through a nationalised system. A recent LGA polling has shown 8 in 10 residents want to be able to have their say on all new homes built in their local community. It is therefore vital that planning is founded on democracy. We must also get away from the notion that councils are blockers to housing growth. They are not. Councils have been approving 9 in 10 planning applications. There are also more than 1.1 million homes that have been given planning permission over the past decade, which are still yet to be built. And in addition, 1 million homes allocated in local plans have not yet been brought forward for planning. The issue getting the homes built. We need the tools to make landowners I've lost my track here. The issue is getting the homes built. We need the tools to make landowners and developers build. If homes are to gain local support, they need to meet local needs, be well integrated with and improve local communities, have the right infrastructure, not just roads, but schools, given green infrastructure, parks and health service, and be sustainable. All too often, poor developments lack of infrastructure and inappropriate permitted developments have undermined public support for much needed homes. We need a reset, and councils are keen to work with government to get these critical reforms right. These are not my words. These are the words of James Jameson, the chairman of the LGA. And the principles set out in this motion from our leader would go a long way to achieving our housing ambitions in the South Hams. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baston.
Sorry?
Right. I think have we got where we're going? We're going to put the substantive motion to the vote. All those in favour?
That's unanimous for the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. White. Right. We have got 5 minutes left, haven't we? 45, if I do the 45-minute bit. How's everybody feeling? Yes, that's the point, yeah. The point being is, do we want to do another one, or do we let them come to the next meeting in reverse order? Which is, right, we'll do the one by Councillor Rose and Hodgson, and hopefully,
Thank you, Chair.
Right.
Before this motion comes up, I'd just like to say thank you very much for the communication I have with Councillor Pearce and the Conservative group. I have made some little adjustments, which I really hope will make it easier. There was also, the word many there should be in red as well. Second paragraph at the top, yeah. Above the word expert. Yes. Thank you. So I sent this out a while ago, so I'm hoping that people have had a chance to see it. To summarise, climate fee and dividend is a carbon taxation system which is proven to be socially just. The poorest people actually benefit from it. They get more money, while big corporations get charged more. As you're aware, climate change is a global issue that affects every living being on this planet, including, of course, everyone in this room. It is sad but true that while the wealthiest 10% of the global population were responsible for more than 50% of global emissions between 1990 and 2015, it is the poorest, least responsible people in the world who are, as I say these words, paying the price for our collective actions. Taking individual responsibility through carbon footprinting and lifestyle changes and the like is clearly a very important part of what needs to happen, but it can also be used to distract from the bigger picture and the bigger polluters. Referencing a list of the biggest polluters from the Climate Accountability Institute, Chevron, Exxon, BP and Shell alone were responsible for 10% of the world's carbon emissions since 1965. The top 20 companies on the list have contributed to 35% of all energy-related carbon dioxide and methane worldwide. The fossil fuel industry is ruthless in taking advantage of every legal, semi-legal, and less than legal route to maximizing their profits at the expense of the international community. It is because of their efforts and our complicity that despite 30 years of warning from the climate scientists, our global carbon emissions are still rising. The latest IPCC report makes it perfectly clear that the world will soon face catastrophe from climate breakdown if urgent action is not taken. According to the International Energy Agency, the latest data shows that global emissions were 2% or 60 million tons higher in December 2020 than they were in the same month a year earlier. Despite a brief drop in emissions at the beginning of the pandemic, Many economies are now seeing emissions climbing above pre-crisis levels. This must not continue. The carbon fee and dividend system offers us a socially just method of decentralizing carbon-intensive processes that the fossil fuel giants will not be able to ignore. They will pay the lion's share of the fee, while the vast majority of citizens will benefit from the dividend. Only those who have the biggest stakes in and oppose the transition away from the fossil fuel industry will be significantly negatively impacted by this system. I believe that it is time for us to put the health of our planet and future generations above the perceived right of a billionaire buying a second island or another yacht. As COP26 approaches and Boris Johnson tells us all to do our part, I ask you to support this motion for our council to pressure our government to do its part. This system benefits everyone in the end, as, despite some attempts to settle on Mars, this Earth is home to us all. Thank you. Sorry, I so move.
Right. Right. Councillor Hodgson, do you want to speak now, or do you reserve the right?
I'll just be really quick because I know we've only got seconds to go. So I'll just
Well,
say
I'm not going to stop the debate. I'll let this all go through and finish.
Okay, thank you. Well, all I was going to say was I think Joseph's made a very clear outline of what this is all about, and I do think that money talks, and people that we've had things. The money has actually undermined the opportunity to kind of push things in the right direction. We have all sorts of dividend, all sorts of opportunities through flying, which is not properly taxed compared to cars. And then we don't have enough public transport. What this looks at is actually regulating that and putting the money from the polluters to supporting the things that could make a difference. And this has been on the political agenda for a long time, but it never has actually really happened. And I think we need to start pushing for this now, because I think people are more committed to recognising that we need mechanisms to make actually a difference. And so that's why I support this, and thank Councillor Rose for bringing it forward.
Councillor Hodgson, I'll just add that Canada and Switzerland have both implemented this scheme very recently.
Okay. Any questions? No. Move to the debate. Anybody wish to speak to this? Councillor Holway.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to support this motion. I think it's the way to go. I rather hope that we can get government to say they're going to do this sooner rather than later, but then perhaps to allow a year or two so that the people who intend to reduce their emissions have a bit of time to do it, and the ones who don't can prepare themselves to pay. Apart from that, I agree that we've got to protect those people who can't reduce their emissions just like that, because it's going to cost them to buy an electric car or whatever. But I wholeheartedly support the motion. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holloway. I just want to stress the point which is in the information that I sent round, so if anyone else is interested to look more, you can. But the average person, so this is people who aren't making a huge profit off fossil fuels, will receive roughly twice the amount of money that the extra taxation. So if their prices go up by £1, they will receive £2. So rather than people having to pay for their carbon, the average person will actually be receiving money individually for them in order to be able to do what they want with it, but hopefully to be able to aid them in that transition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? Right. We will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour?
That is unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think we're past the 45 minutes. We've had a busy afternoon, and I think it only remains for me to say thank you for a very lively debate this afternoon. I think we sorted quite a lot out, and I believe that the motions left will come back in reverse order. Is that correct? No.
No, we adopt the cab rank rule, so the first one that was little C will in effect be the first one for the next meeting.
Right. Okay, that's fine. All right. Okay, so thank you very much.